So the solution was, when you play in your region, how do you feel about the people in the games that you're with? And he's like, they're dog shit. And I told him, as long as you treat them like dog shit, you will be treated like, you will think that you are dog shit, because that's the construction. That's the play that your mind enacts. I recently discovered that a lot of the emotions I felt in the past can be described as fear of missing out, or FOMO. I don't know if there's a mental health equivalent. I've had the hardest time trying to describe this feeling, and I've always defaulted to envy that wasn't always true. I get FOMO from people doing stuff I don't even care about or want, and it's borderline debilitating. I've ended friendships because of the life they live and how much it scared me and upset me that they were living more life than me, even though I didn't care to have that particular thing. I've recently pledged to myself to live more and improve, doing more and experiencing stuff I haven't experienced before. But I still get this absolutely heartbreaking feeling that others are somehow enjoying it more than me, and I get angry at myself for not enjoying myself or finding satisfaction in things. It's a vicious cycle that keeps feeding in on itself and causing me to want to give up even trying. I think if I was somehow able to find the real satisfaction in things I do, I'd be less likely to feel dwarfed by other people's experiences. Oh man. I feel like each of these could be an hour-long lecture, chat. The fear of missing out is a really interesting challenge. And I think, once again, it's like an umbrella term that may have multiple roots to it, okay? The first thing that I'm going to share with you guys is actually from yoga. So it's a really interesting passage from, I forget which Upanishad, maybe the Taittiriya Upanishad, that talks about proximal emotions and distal emotions. So what the yogis realized is that there's a set of emotions that we feel that are like more acceptable, that actually have like underlying more toxic emotions underneath. So like envy can actually be like the proximal emotion. It's like, oh, like I feel happy for someone. I wish I was like that. And underneath that can actually be like anger or hatred. So it's kind of really interesting, because I'm not surprised that we see, if you guys paid attention to the case, right, like the further down we go, the more we get to like hatred. So interestingly enough, when you're dealing with these proximal emotions and distal emotions, like the acceptable emotion, which is like envy, like it's okay to be envious of someone, right? Like I wish I had that. It's less okay to be like, I hate that person for having that. And so the interesting thing is that, you know, a lot of this could come from dealing with your hatred. So like, do you hate those people? Like, do you hate people who have more than you? What is it like that other people have had more than you and you have not? So I would ask this person, if you have FOMO and you kind of feel envious of other people, ask yourself, like, step one, underneath the envy, is there hatred? And like, how do you, because a lot of times, like, we don't want to hate our friends, right? Like, it's very conflicting internally. It's very dystonic. So we don't let ourselves feel that. And since we don't let ourselves feel that, it never goes away. It just stays there. It lingers. It's the trash can that's rotting in the corner that you never let yourself look at because you never explore it. And so it kind of like fuels this stuff. That's number one. Okay? So explore for hatred underneath. The second thing is to start to think a little bit about, like, when did you miss out, right? So now we're going to take the samskar approach. So like, if I was talking to this person in an interview, what I would kind of ask them is like, when did you start missing out in life? What does it kind of feel like to miss out? Like, have there been times in your life where, like, you know, there was someone who like got something that you didn't have? And like, there was like the person who was happy, and then there was like you who was like neglected, and you really wanted to be that person. And explore that stuff. That's how you may find the root of it. Okay, so to ask yourself, when did you start missing out? When was the first time that you felt FOMO really, really powerfully? And forget about social media. Because chances are it may be something from your personal life, maybe something when you were young, like your parents took your sibling on a trip and they left you behind, like something like that. Okay? The third thing is that social media makes FOMO worse, right? So like, social media creates a system for our brain that is busted. So if I have 30 friends on Facebook, the stuff that Facebook is going to populate my feed with is the stuff that gets the most likes. So person number 1 has a birthday. Bunch of likes, bunch of comments, I see that. Person number 2 the next day goes on vacation. Person number 3 has a baby. Person number 4 graduates from college. Person number 5 wins an award. Person number 6 gets engaged. Person number 7 gets a promotion. Person number 8 has a big surprise party that their parents throw for them. Person number 10 gets a gift from their parents, gets a brand new car. And what happens is our mind sees all of these like high points from 30 different people's lives. And then what we see appears to be like this glut of a perfect life. Because our brain doesn't really process that like for every post this person makes, that they get 1,000 likes, they make 1,000 posts that get 1 like. What your brain sees is the 1,000 posts that you make that get 1 like. So this kind of FOMO phenomenon is like very clearly tied to social media and like is almost predatory in terms of the way that it like, enhances this feeling. So there is this stuff about, envy and hatred. There's absolutely finding the roots of it. And then there's like what propagates the phenomenon of FOMO in your life. What builds up FOMO despite the roots? What's the fertilizer we're throwing? What's the gasoline that we're pouring on top of the fire? The fire's there. The fire's there because of deep yogic roots and past experiences in your life. And then social media is the gasoline. So this is where people say, just get off social media, which is challenging for any number of reasons. But my experience has been that just getting off of social media doesn't fix the problem. That's the boomer solution. Just stop it. No, like people had FOMO and envy and hatred and jealousy far before social media. Social media making it worse? Is it aggravating it? Absolutely. Right? But then there's also like the roots of the problem that you kind of have to get to. So what I'd say to this person, and if you're kind of thinking about FOMO, right, is that like it's normal to have FOMO. It's important to understand that social media is going to exacerbate it. But really ask yourself, what are the underlying emotions that are like driving my feeling of FOMO? And then the fourth thing that they said, which I think makes perfect sense, is if I'm able to somehow find real satisfaction in things I do, I'd be less likely to feel dwarfed by other people's experiences. That person's precisely correct, but it's the other way around. You will never find real satisfaction in things as long as you are comparing based on other people. The way to find real satisfaction in things is to let go of comparison. And so as long as your mind looks at someone else and says, this person is better or worse than me, you will never find satisfaction or happiness. And this is the really tricky thing. So the last thing, the secret to FOMO, okay, if you want to really unplug FOMO, there's one tiny psychological life hack, as much as I detest the term, that you can use that will actually disarm FOMO. And that is you feeling superior to other people in particular situations. So as long as you let yourself feel superior to others, the reverse of that will happen to you. You will feel inferior. So letting go of your feelings of inferiority, start by letting go of your feelings of superiority. I was working with a professional player from a particular region in a particular sport. This person is very good, was very high up in their region, and traveled and would boot camp in a different region that is known to be a quote-unquote stronger region. And he would find himself in pub games with other people who were like the top players for that region. And he felt like, his words literally, dog shit playing with them. Any mistake he made, he would feel like, oh my God, like these epic players that I've looked up to my entire life must think that I am dog shit. He would think that, and he would ask me, like, how do I let go of this? Like, I just can't play with these people. It's really messing up my mental. So the solution was, when you play in your region, how do you feel about the people in the games that you're with? And he's like, they're dog shit. And I told him, as long as you treat them like dog shit, you will be treated like, you will think that you are dog shit, because that's the construction. That's the play that your mind enacts. And as long as you're feeling superior, it's just the flip side of the coin. And so it's interesting because he's gotten a lot better. Right? Like, He's like, oh, like the less judgmental he's become, the less superior he feels, right? Towards those people, like actually like he has gotten way better. And his performance has actually objectively improved, and he has been placing higher in international events. So the last thing about FOMO is if you feel inferior to other people, you can also disarm the feeling of superiority. Notice that. Why do I feel better than this person? As you explore that, you will actually deflate the inferiority with it. It's all ego, Ahamkara, right? So the Ahamkara, so we'll just summarize with like Sanskrit, baby. It goes back to the yoga. The Ahamkara is the I feeling. It compares. As long as the Ahamkara is active, you're going to be making comparisons. The sense of identity, the me, I'm a doctor, I went to Harvard. In my mind, every time I say I went to Harvard, my mind is drawing a comparison to everyone who didn't. It makes me feel a little bit superior. So I have to notice that each and every time. And as long as I notice that and I say, actually, you're not better than anyone else, like just RNG, baby, you just lucked out. Like literally it was RNG. Right? And so as long as you're feeling superior to other people, you're going to be feeling inferior somewhere else. It's because equality is equality, man. Like you can't, if you're not equal, you're not equal. And that's going to come with superiority and inferiority. How to not feel guilty about your successful RNG? Like it's RNG, dude. Just appreciate it. Right? So it can be challenging. That's another thing. So when you say how to not feel guilty about your successful RNG, it's not about the RNG, it's about the feeling of guilt. So the question is like, why does your mind find something to feel guilty about? You just can't chill. That's what you need to work on. Forget about the RNG. So this is a problem, is that a lot of people look at the object that their mind looks at instead of the way that their mind looks at it. Like a case of the what ifs. Right? Like a case of the shoulda, woulda, couldas. I should have done this, I could have done this, I would have done this. And your mind is always thinking like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done this, I should have done this. Why is your mind producing the should thoughts to begin with? That's what you need to focus on. You should focus on why your mind is focusing on should. Yeah, I love this quote from Billy Fanboy. There's nothing, from Ernest Hemingway. There's nothing noble in being superior to your fellow man. True nobility is being superior to your former self. Beautiful.